The setting sun painted Atlanta in warm hues as Layla Harris finished loading her groceries into the trunk of her aging blue Toyota Corolla. A 22-year-old college senior, Layla juggled a demanding schedule of classes, 2 part-time jobs, and volunteering at a local youth center. That evening, as the quiet buzz of the city surrounded her, she felt a rare moment of calm, unaware that it was about to be shattered. She shut the trunk with a satisfying click and turned to place her cart in the return rack when the unmistakable flash of blue and red lights filled the parking lot. Her heart sank. The lights belonged to a police cruiser, and it was pulling up behind her car. Layla froze, her breath catching as the officer stepped out. Sergeant Travis Colton, a veteran of the force, had a reputation for being overly aggressive, particularly with younger people and especially in predominantly black neighborhoods. He adjusted his belt, his imposing figure silhouetted against the flashing lights, and walked toward her with a purposeful stride. "Ma'am," he barked, his voice sharp and commanding. "Open the trunk." Layla's heart pounded. She hadn't done anything wrong, and she knew it. But the way Colton looked at her, like he had already decided she was guilty of something, made her stomach churn. "Excuse me, officer," she began, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "May I ask why you need to see my trunk?" Colton's gaze hardened. "I'm not here to answer questions. Open the trunk, or I'll open it myself." Layla hesitated, her mind racing. She had heard stories like this before, had watched viral videos of encounters gone wrong. She knew her rights, but she also knew how easily situations like these could escalate. Slowly, she pulled her phone from her pocket and pressed record, keeping the camera pointed discreetly at her side. "All right," she said, her voice calm but edged with defiance. "I'm opening the trunk, but I want to know what this is about." Colton didn't respond. He simply stepped back, his hand resting ominously on his holster as Layla moved toward the trunk, her hands trembling. The trunk creaked open, and Colton immediately leaned in, shining his flashlight over the contents. Layla watched as he rifled through her belongings with little regard for her neatly packed groceries. A carton of eggs teetered on the edge, threatening to fall, but he paid no attention. "What are you looking for?" Layla asked, her voice firmer now. Colton straightened, his face a mask of frustration. "Anything suspicious?" he snapped. "Drugs? Stolen goods? You tell me." Layla's jaw clenched. She had done nothing to warrant this treatment, and she wasn't about to let him intimidate her into silence. "Officer, I don't have anything illegal. Everything in there is mine. You can check the receipts in my bag," she said, gesturing toward her purse on the passenger seat. Colton ignored her, continuing to rummage through the trunk. A small crowd began to gather at the edges of the parking lot, their murmurs growing louder as they watched the scene unfold. Some pulled out their phones, recording from a distance. Layla's own phone, still hidden in her pocket, captured every word, every movement. Moments later, another cruiser pulled into the lot. Officer Elena Morales, a younger cop with a more reserved demeanor, stepped out and approached the scene. She took in the sight of Colton rifling through the trunk and the tension etched across Layla's face. "What's going on here, Sergeant?" Morales asked, her tone cautious but firm. "Routine stop," Colton replied curtly, not looking up. Morales frowned. "Doesn't seem routine to me," she said, her eyes flicking toward Layla. "Miss, are you all right?" Layla nodded slightly but didn't speak. She wasn't sure if Morales was an ally or just another part of the problem. Before the tension could escalate further, Colton's radio crackled to life. "Sergeant Colton, report back to the station immediately. Priority." Colton stiffened. His jaw clenched as he processed the order, and for a brief moment, he looked as if he might defy it. But with a frustrated grunt, he stepped back from the trunk. "You're free to go," he muttered, slamming the trunk shut. Layla didn't move at first, unsure if the nightmare was truly over. Slowly, she climbed into her car, locked the doors, and drove away, her phone still recording until she was several blocks from the scene. Only then did she stop the recording and upload it to the cloud, her hands trembling as the reality of what had just happened sank in. In the days following the encounter, Layla Harris's life became unrecognizable. The video she had secretly recorded spread across social media like wildfire. It was shared, reshared, and dissected in forums, news segments, and conversations across the country. The hashtag #Justice for Layla trended on every platform, amplifying her voice far beyond the confines of her Atlanta neighborhood. The public response was immediate and intense, with emotions ranging from outrage to support. Community leaders, civil rights organizations, and activists quickly rallied around Layla's story. Her calm demeanor in the face of intimidation and her courage to document the injustice resonated deeply with people who had faced similar situations. Protesters filled the streets of Atlanta, holding signs with slogans like "Accountability Now" and "End Racial Profiling." Many of them carried Layla's image, her strength symbolizing the collective struggle against systemic bias and abuse of power. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Police Department scrambled to control the fallout. Sergeant Travis Colton, the officer at the center of the controversy, was placed on administrative leave as an internal investigation was launched. Public pressure mounted for swift and decisive action. News outlets ran continuous coverage of the incident, with commentators dissecting every second of Layla's recording. Civil rights attorneys took an interest in Layla's case, offering their expertise to ensure her story wasn't just a momentary flashpoint but a catalyst for lasting change. Layla, however, faced a different kind of battle in her personal life. While the outpouring of support was immense, so too was the backlash. Anonymous threats, hateful messages, and baseless accusations of exaggeration flooded her social media accounts. She deleted some platforms altogether to protect her mental health, but she refused to retreat entirely. "I won't let their hate silence me," she told a local reporter during an interview. "This isn't just about me, it's about everyone who has ever been treated like they don't belong, like their rights don't matter. It's about changing a system that has allowed this kind of behavior to go unchecked for too long." Layla's family and friends became her pillars of strength. Her mother, a retired school teacher, spoke out during town hall meetings, sharing her pride in her daughter's bravery. Her friends organized gatherings to raise awareness about the importance of recording interactions with law enforcement and knowing one's rights. Together, they turned what had started as a terrifying ordeal into a rallying cry for justice. The investigation into Sergeant Colton's actions revealed a troubling pattern. Complaints about his conduct had been filed before, but they had quietly been dismissed or buried within the department's bureaucracy. Layla's video was different, it was irrefutable. The footage showed not only his aggression but also his clear disregard for protocol and the rights of the citizens he was sworn to protect. As the investigation expanded, it became clear that Colton's behavior wasn't an isolated incident. Other officers within the department had similarly troubling records, and the systemic issues of racial profiling and excessive force came under intense scrutiny. Public outrage demanded accountability, and local officials were forced to act. Layla's case became the tipping point for a wave of reforms in Atlanta's policing practices. New policies were implemented, including mandatory de-escalation training, bias awareness courses, and the creation of an independent civilian oversight board to review complaints against officers. The department also began outfitting officers with body cameras to ensure transparency during all interactions with the public. But Layla's impact didn't stop at Atlanta. Her story inspired other cities to examine their own policing practices, prompting nationwide conversations about racial profiling and accountability. Civil rights groups used her case as a rallying point, advocating for broader changes to law enforcement policies and pushing for legislation that would protect citizens from discriminatory policing. For Layla, the attention was overwhelming but also empowering. She began speaking at community events, sharing her story to inspire others to stand up for their rights. Universities invited her to panel discussions, and civil rights organizations sought her input on initiatives to promote equality and justice. Though she hadn't asked to become a public figure, Layla embraced the role with grace, using her platform to amplify voices that often went unheard. "This isn't just my fight," she said during a televised interview. "It's our fight. It's about creating a future where no one has to feel the fear and humiliation I felt that night." Layla's story is a testament to the power of courage and resilience. What began as a routine trip to the grocery store turned into a defining moment, not just for her, but for an entire city and beyond. Her bravery and standing firm against injustice sparked a movement that demanded change, and her actions reminded us all of the importance of speaking up, even in the face of fear. To our viewers, what would you have done in Layla's position? Would you have had the strength to stay calm, to document the truth, and to fight for accountability? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, stories like Layla's are not just isolated incidents. They represent the lived experiences of countless individuals who face systemic biases every day. It's up to all of us to push for a fairer, more just society where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we can amplify voices like Layla's and create the momentum needed for real, lasting change. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, every action, no matter how small, can be a step toward justice. Let's take that step together.